happy to introduce the last person for today. It will be an interview between Dr. Mao Mao, who is the CEO and founder of Seeking company, and myself, one of the founders of the Biotech Atelier. Dr. Mao, welcome. I know that you are very far away from Bulgaria. What's the time now at your zone?
Oh, it's 8 o'clock
8 o'clock in the morning. So you
in the morning.
had your coffee already, I hope.
Yes, I had another 6 a.m. meeting already.
Very good. So, Dr. Mao, you have a very impressive biography, being Chief Scientific Officer of BGI, a huge company, and also a leader of the Cancer Society of Asia. How do you actually decided to go to a private business? What was your motivation?
Thank you first of all for the interview. So actually, we had a lot of email communications, but we never saw each other. We didn't know,
No, I think that we
each
saw each
other
other once.
look like.
No, we saw each other once. I think 6 months ago, with the
Okay.
protection of Peter Captain, but we will speak about this later on.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I had a very long career. So I started from a clinician. I was an OBGYN. So then I switched to cancer research. So I also worked on the human genome, and then I joined the industry. So mainly in US, the startups, big farmers, and so end of 2013, I went back to China. I joined the Wuxi AppTech, a huge CRO company. So then BGI. So along the way, I always want to do something for patients. Not just as a clinician, how to treat patients. I want to something to be large scale. So that's why I'm kind of switched from academia research to the industry, and I want to build something like a subway instead of Uber. So that was kind of the whole idea, and start with this startup. It's all about I cannot do this type of kind of high risk. I need a lot of investment, this kind of thing. So I'm kind of push it away from the I push myself away from the big companies to have a startup, mainly focusing on cancer early detection. So that was the transition from big companies to a startup. I believe only startup can do this type of work.
What you say is a music for my ears, because actually I was also a long time a clinician, and I decided to go out of the clinic looking for the scale of helping patients, because if you are in the clinic, you help to 8 patients a day, let's say, or 10. But if you have a successful startup or a successful business, you can help 1,000 or 10,000 a day. Not to speak about other challenges. And it's really interesting that you have taken this decision almost on the same year as I completely phased out of the clinic in 2014. So what is your company doing actually? Could you explain to the audience? Because I know what you are doing and it's fantastic, and this is why we have invited you. But could you explain briefly to the audience what are you doing actually?
Yes. So the whole idea is about since 2014. I think that's a very critical year for me. That because so you may don't know too much about cancer early detection. That was the year Exact Science got their journal medicine publication. So the 10,000 study about using Cologuard to screen colon cancer. So that year. I'm kind of want to do something big, and also I believe it's doable. That's basically to use one tube of blood to screen all the cancers. Instead of you have the Cologuard to screen for colon cancer, so I want to have one test to cover all the cancers. And because we don't know, right, what cancer we are going to get. right? If we high risk, if we smoke, we get lung cancer. But we are pretty much average people. Any cancer we get is random. I don't want to develop, a bunch of tests to cover individual cancer type and do this addition, add them together, right? So that was the idea in 2014. And so then late 2017, as I said, I realized I need to do this in a startup setting. So the whole focus is to use one tube of blood to screen all the cancers. I think the day is coming, right? So you may be familiar with Grail's work, you may know, Thrive. So I believe in the next 3 to 5 years, the cancer early detection will be very different. Today is about, so you have certain, tests for different cancer types, right? You have the mammogram for breast cancer, you have low-dose CT for lung cancer, you have probably 5 altogether. But I think in 3 to 5 years, you also have this test, the blood test, to screen, all the cancer, try to screen all the cancers together. So that was what we are doing. But in the meanwhile, because this is about to detect the very weak signal, right, cancer signal in blood. So we are looking at circulating DNA and also protein. So if we can see these kind of cancer signal in a normal individual, right, asymptomatic, right, so we can do this detection. But if we apply this to the kind of surgically removed cancer patients, right, you can monitor the MRD, minimal residual disease. We can also monitor the recurrence. And by using the same mechanism, right, so we can also to see the drug response in the late stage patients. So that's what I'm focusing on. Yeah.
So it sounds amazing that you and Seekin will be able to introduce a test which can identify every cancer in every patient.
Okay, be careful. You are talking about 100% coverage in 100% patients, right? So that's actually not easy, right? So
I know.
based on the biology, we are using the common feature of cancer, like the copy number change, the fragmentomics, and also a panel of 7 protein. So based on the biology, we suppose can identify all the different cancer types. But we have different sensitivities across the spectrum, right? So we have high sensitivity in liver, pancreatic, because they are very aggressive. We have kind of low sensitivity in thyroid cancer because they are sleeping, they don't kill us. So we have different sensitivity across different cancer types. That means we also have different sensitivity in different individuals. We are not going to detect all the cancers in all the individuals. But we have very reasonable sensitivity to use this in the real world. Yeah.
Very interesting. I have another question which is a bit sensitive, but still it's important for me to understand better the perspective of your business. Do you think that there might be any racial deficiencies between, for example, people in Asia and between people in Europe? Because we know, for example, that the EGFR mutation in lung cancer is pretty much different in Asia and in Europe. How do you cope with this?
Right. So we do see this kind of differences, right, in kind of different ethnic, populations. But for me, the cancer biology is the same. The difference is quantitative, right? So you have EGFR mutations, you still have the exact same, 2 dominant mutations, but only 15%, right? The lung cancer patients in your population. But if you look Asia, look in Japan, China, that's 50%. So there is a quantitative difference, but the biology is the same. Again, so when we look at these common cancer features, they are the same across different populations. At least, okay. So I think we may see some kind of differences, but that's mainly the cancer incidence in different populations. So like the number one cancer in China is lung. I also believe that's in Europe, but in Africa, that's liver cancer. So different population may have different spectrum. We have very high incidence of gastric cancer and esophageal cancer. So perhaps relatively low in your population. The prostate cancer in China is relatively low also. Okay, so again, I do believe by using these common features, so we can identify cancers, or can identify different cancer types, and also in different populations.
Very good answer. I really do appreciate, but when you speak about differences, for example, in Africa, for sure there will be financial troubles for your test in Africa.
Right.
I know your approach and I do appreciate it, but could you please share with the audience, how do you plan to penetrate Africa with your test?
Right. So go back to this concept. I said, I want to build a subway system, okay, instead of Uber. The subway system in Shanghai sells 10 billion tickets a day. 10 billion tickets a day, okay? So that's the scale. By building this large scale, certainly we can be more cost effective to reduce the cost, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is we want to be more cost effective by looking at these tests. How can we reduce the cost, but kind of still maintain a similar performance or a little bit lower performance, but still good enough? Okay, so that's what we are doing. We also need to keep this in mind, right? So in US, on average, a cancer patient will spend $5,000. That's in US. In Europe, it's about $700 US. Okay, so then if we go this low and mid income country, it's probably only like $50. So we need to think about this kind of dynamic. And in the meanwhile, how to improve, as I said, how to improve the efficiency, how to improve the cost effectiveness, but also try to using technology to reduce the cost. Like for example, so if we are using next generation sequencing to look at the particular features in the cancer genome, but can we use an alternative technology to get the same thing? Okay, so that's another thing we are also working on. So we also hope we can have some kind of African version for the cancer early detection. So we are doing, one way is to try to use alternative, different technologies, cheaper technologies. The other is we try to remove some expensive components in the assay to see, can we still have a relatively good result come out? So that we have a simplified version now we call OncoSeq, and we try to disseminate that particular simplified version in Africa.
Thank you very much. The next question is related to the growing role of the patients in every development in medicine. How do you see the patient involvement in your business?
I do see they can involve a lot in general. So we are also working on, all of us are working on this field right now. So the involvement could be some kind of at individual level. That could be patient advocacy groups, right? So you promote certain things. Basically, you promote certain knowledge, or you promote certain treatment. So this is kind of at individual level or small group level. And at the big level, I do believe this kind of citizen-driven research. We know an organization in US called Patient Like Me, right? So this, I believe this will be something, when we have all the digital information, right? So we can collect them and patients can contribute them. And then we have a platform. So we have these kind of commons, right? So people can work on the data, people can do different type of research. So I believe this is about, one is more on the individual level, the other is more on the population level.
Very interesting. In Europe now we have two parallel processes. The one process is the implementation of European health data space, and the other one is the European beating the cancer plan. So imagine you have your subway in Europe in 2 years, and you can test a million patients per day. How do you intend to cope with the data, and how do you intend to protect them?
Right. So the data privacy is always a sensitive issue. So that's why we have worked it out upfront. And what we are doing, at least for now, so we respect all the kind of restrictions or the rules, right? So one thing we are doing now is particularly in Japan. So we have 600 patients MRD study ongoing, and basically we train a lab, a CL lab in Tokyo, so they will run the tests, and then we use AWS, the cloud, to access the data and analyze the data. Basically, this is a local cloud, so the data, all the data, especially the raw data, will stay in Japan, and we use the cloud to analyze the data and also issue reports. I think eventually this kind of test to be part of some kind of a national program. So there will be this kind of, again. So I think the national program will have its own data protection. So we just be part of it, and we don't know how. We do know, as I said, how to kind of divide the tests into different components, and also how to distribute different components into different places. But again, eventually, we still want to build large labs, because that's going to be like a subway system, right? That's going to be more cost effective. And also, we use this kind of a cloud approach to analyze the data. So that's what in our mind, and also what we are doing now.
It sounds extremely interesting. How do you combine actually proteomics and genomics in your test? Is it easy, or this is the trick, actually, the secret sauce of your business?
So on paper, everything is simple, right? When we talk about this kind of test, right? The biology, so we are using. So we are looking at common features. I said copy number. We are looking at fragmentation. We have panel of proteins, and as I said, we can give SOP to a lab. The lab can run the tests. But I don't want to say the secret sauce. What we want to do again is still. Well, I want that system to be open. Can be used by everyone. I think the secret sauce is not just because we have a lot of baseline data, and we have a lot of patient data. So we know exactly what are the signals and what are the background, right? So the background is also very important when we have this kind of large baseline data. And the other kind of expertise or know-how is in the real world, right? So you have an airplane, right? You can perform a lot of tests on the ground, but in the end, it needs to fly.
Exactly.
That's the real world experience. So that is, you accumulate that experience. In the meanwhile, actually, you kind of foresee those kind of experience, what will happen in the real world. So that's another layer of know-how. I think, it will need, data time to accumulate, and also need, the human mind to understand, the real world. Yeah, so that's I think why we can be better, because all these together.
The last question is, when do you think you will be flying actually? When you have 1 million, 1 billion tests, or the first successful country? When exactly do you think you will be flying?
Right. So you have test flights now. So like as I said, Seeking Care is a pain cancer, blood-based, pain cancer early detection test. So we have launched the test, and we have real-world data for 4 years in China. So people pay for the test as a LDT, so we deliver the result to them. So we have thousands of individuals have that test already. So these are kind of test flights, and we are doing well. Now we can take off, we can stay in the air, and we can land. Okay, so far so good. And in terms to get that larger scale, that will need a lot of effort, right? So it's not just to build large infrastructure, and also to generate clinical data to convince the clinicians and also to convince the government, right, to make it to be the largest scale. I think that will take, first of all, a lot of money, right, to generate the largest scale data to convince the regular body, especially at the national insurance level, to do that, at the population level. So we're doing regulatory submissions. We will we already have 6 tests got CE mark, right? So in Europe, and also we are doing the clinical study in Japan. We are going to use that data for regulatory approval in Japan. So we are doing this. We try to build the clinical evidence and approvals in different places. But then we need to push that into the national level. So we need to work with government, but the government in the same time, governments also need to have these kind of, new technology in their mind, because they want to manage cancer in a better way, right? So we have, a better outcome, better survival, and a more on the health economic side. So we also, gain from this type of new technology.
Very impressive. Thank you very much. I can say that your startup is one of the most impressive startups I have seen in the last years. So I really wish you great luck. Thank you for being part of this event.
Thank you for your invitation.
I can state once again that Bulgaria should be one of the first countries to implement your test.
Thank you very much.
Not with the support of the government, but with the support of the public and with the support of the patients.
Right.
Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you also to all panelists and to my crew who did a great job today on the first day of Biotech Atelier. Stay with us in the next 2 days. Good evening or good morning, and bye-bye. Have a nice day to everyone.
Bye-bye.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Georgiev, and everyone for attending. I would also like to just do a quick thanks to our sponsors for this year's Biotech Atelier. This would include the companies Roche, Amgen, Astellas, EUTA 90M, Novartis, Janssen Johnson & Johnson, our contributors, Arm Pharma and PharmaLex, and to our organizational partners without whom we wouldn't be able to contribute these wonderful sessions today, DigiBurn and NM Genomics. And again, thank you all panelists for contributing to these sessions, and to the attendees for engaging with our lectures. And now Gary will just give a few words about tomorrow's sessions and what would you expect.
Well, what a start today. We heard really inspiring talks on diverse topics. Future of healthcare, gender health gap, innovations, personalized medicine, regulations, diagnostics, ATMPs, pharmacogenetics, and pharmacogenomics. A colorful palette of all these topics, but what's the common? I would say it's the patient. So tomorrow, this would be the focus of the entire day, and we are waiting for you at 9 Central European Time to join the session and hear about patient advocacy, patient centricity, patient empowerment, and many more. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very inspiring
Bye.
day.